Tabletop will start after the following messages. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tabletop. Today, we are doing a system review of Thirsty Sword Lesbians, created by April Kit Walsh, produced by Evil Hat Productions, and published by Gay Spaceship Games. Everyone, let's give a round of applause for Thirsty Sword Lesbians! Woo! Also, it's the first RPG to win a Nebula Award in the Best Game Writing category. Very cool. And also the 2022 ENnie Awards Best Game and Product of the Year. So we are really starting this off, putting it on this pedestal. And to talk about it with me today, we have a group of friends that some would say have been on this podcast before. So let's introduce ourselves yet again.
It's me, Daniel.
It's him, Franco.
Also him, Shade.
Awesome. All right, so we're here to talk about this game. Daniel, you're kind of going to be leading us through some of this as you've actually run Thirsty Sword Lesbians before. The rest of us either are acquainted with it or have played in it. So what is Thirsty Sword Lesbians, for those who don't know?
Thirsty Sword Lesbians is a tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah, let's start big picture.
Let's zoom out.
Yeah.
It's a game.
Yes.
So it is sort of a Powered by the Apocalypse-esque 2d6 system game that takes more focus away from, monsters or combat and just goes, how are you going to interact with other people in this sort of scenario? Yeah. And gives you more of, if we were to say like other games like Pathfinder and Monster of the Week are all like action horror dramas, this is more like your rom-com Bridgerton swashbuckler game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like the classes and everything in it, when I was looking through, I was like, this game looks fucking dope. It looks very fun.
Yeah, definitely check out the book and the art if you ever get a chance. It's really well done.
Yeah. So, Franco, you have played in a game.
Yeah, I have played in a game.
What is it like?
It was super fun. And I think I also read the rule book, and I know, and playing it, I was like, oh, I've always wanted to play Monster Hearts, which I think Thirsty Sword Lesbians also uses the string mechanic, which is sort of like when you like interact with somebody, you like can get a string on them for like whatever reason. You can spend that at a certain point to like do something or whatever, and it just like it nicely gamifies like the sort of interactions that you have with people.
Yeah. And
it's also fun because all of the interactions are like romantical ones. And so I'm just like hitting on all of Danny's NPCs. Yeah. I think I don't remember exactly how the game went, but it was very good.
There's definitely a lot of player GM flirtations. So if you're going to pick up this game, prepare for that.
Yeah, that was actually one thing as I was reading it, because I wasn't there the day that you guys played. And Shade, you weren't either.
Yeah, we both had something come up, I think.
And when I was reading through it, that was the thing that I was like, I'm scared. Because that's something I've always been a little nervous about. But what about you, Shade?
I mean, I was really excited to play it, and I was really sad that I couldn't.
To flirt with me?
Yes. But also just, frankly, like when I read it, I didn't see it as necessarily, flirtation's not like mandatory in Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
No. You can do the sword part too.
Yeah, exactly. But I read it and I was like, oh, this is Steven Universe, the ttrpg.
Exactly. That's what drew me to it.
Yeah.
And the art kind of reflects that.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. And or even if you want to like maybe you haven't seen Steven Universe, but you're an anime person. This is literally any like Dragon Ball Z, but you're playing Vegeta. Because you're going to come to the other side.
You're a little emo boy.
Yeah. It's like every conflict is resolved with actions or resolved with like words and not actions. And it's all like, let's get our emotional intelligence a flex.
Yeah.
I loved rolling to like just I don't know, like shade people and shit. So like I think I did like a dance battle at some point.
You had a dance battle with someone. There was definitely a lot of like bathroom drama, confessional scenes.
Oh yeah. I like comforted. Oh yeah, like I feel like I comforted somebody in the bathroom, and then like that gave me something mechanical in the game.
So when I was making it, I wish I could remember what I named people. I did not pull up my notes for this game, but there was sort of the life. So as we talk about the game we played, I'm going to give you some background. It was a pageant amongst a group of immortal beings for who would get to become the pantheon of a new world that was just big banged into existence. So as our groups gathered, there was a lot of sort of like Greek-esque characters.
I think that premise works really well for a one-shot as well, which is what it was.
Yeah, we just played it the one time, and there was a character that I was like, okay, this is going to be Gaia. She's going to be like the seasons, and she's going to be my good force if they want to if they don't want to be the prime deity, they can help this person win. And then there was another one who was like clothed in all black, had the snake hair. I wish I could remember. I think I just named her Hecate.
Medusa? Might have been Hecate, yeah.
And so the villainess, though, is what the group latched on to because like she was in the bathroom, like because her and Gaia were exes.
Yeah.
And they were both trying to become the prime deity of this new world. So it was like, let's get going. And then like, your character went to the bathroom. You're like, oh, I'm going to comfort her. And it's like, oh, shit. Which created sort of like with your own actions, like, okay, well, now the bad guy's got to be the good guy and the good guy's got to be the bad guy.
Yeah, I think
we switched alliances, so I got to change.
Jackie's character was pursuing her as well romantically, I want to say. Is that right?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And then I started hitting on or I guess like flirting with an NPC that you had made up on the spot.
Right, yeah. Had to create a quick fire elemental deity for you to flirt with. Yeah.
Man, fire elementals are so hot and cold, though.
Yeah.
So true.
I mean, I was going to make the joke, too, and I decided not to. I was like, no, I don't want to objectify this in NPC, but it's right there. Yeah. Hot.
I think that this is like such an interesting part of the game that even in the rule book when I was reading through it, it's like you prioritize give the same weight to all of these kind of emotional moments and things, and
like being vulnerable is
being vulnerable
is like
and in the game actually is mechanically rewarded as well,
right?
And it's not just like out of combat skills are a method to get into or out of combat effectively. It is they are both parts of the game and both very valuable, so you don't want to like discount any of them, which is interesting. One thing I wanted to ask you guys about was the actual playing of it, because Franco, you've told me in the past, like, I'm not like a super role play heavy person when I sit down at a table.
That doesn't sound like me.
That doesn't sound like me. When you sat down to play this, though, it sounds like you really got into the sort of, at least the mechanics of doing the role play aspects of it. So do you find that helped you into that?
It did. I mean, I think even talking about like Powered by the Apocalypse games, like Carmen in your Monster of the Week game, which is also Powered by the Apocalypse, was one of my, I think, probably my most fleshed out character that I've ever had in a role-playing game. I think a lot of time, mostly because of how, I don't know, it kind of like, it lets you, the system kind of rewards you for those social interactions. Mm-hmm. And I think that helped me kind of flesh out like my own character in Thirsty Sword Lesbians, which was even just like, you know, it's like, this is just a one shot. And it's also kind of like, well, I'm just like a goddess or something, but like all the I don't say archetypes for it as well, like kind of set you up to be like, this is the type of character you could be. And it like kind of lets you just like slip into that. I think even better than like maybe Monster of the Week, because Monster of the Week I think is even more general.
Yeah, because like Monster of the Week is like archetypes from that genre in media. So it's like, oh, the Chosen is like Buffy and whatever. But these are sort of like personality archetypes where it's like you're like the grungy earth witch or you're like the swashbuckling like female pirate or whatever, you know, like it's,
I think I was the nature witch. That's what it was. And
they kind of, even when I was like reading through the archetypes of the different characters you can build. It sort of helps you mechanically build in like the types of personalities that you might want to play with this as well, which I think is very cool. But Daniel, when you were looking at it, how did you sort of guide people into making their Thirsty Sword Lesbian?
I really sort of just let them do what they were going to do because we were all learning the game together. And I was really more focused on how to make the world feel like lived in. Because you, again, like if you're used to like a D20 system game, then you know like, oh, these characters are going to have these stat blocks and this is what kind of they're going to be around and doing. Where this game's like there are no stat blocks. It's just like, oh, they have these reactions and all. How do I make characters that are going to be engaging and challenging in ways that are not going to be, oh, they have a D6 of damage. They can cast a spell from this far away. It was a very like different mindset. And so I just sort of let the players like, you guys just do whatever you want because I have no idea how a game like this is supposed to work. So we're just like, nothing we do is going to be wrong. We can only get better.
How did you design the NPCs? Like, what were the choices? Was it mostly flavor, or did you have any like mechanical effects as well?
I didn't have any mechanical effects. I just knew that the two main protagonists or antagonists, as you
as
decided,
the night went on.
were going to be X's, both vying for the same role that the players were also going to be vying for. And like that was my big source of conflict. Like, there's this one pageant winner. Are the players going to rally around someone, or are they all going to like scatter and do their own thing? So I wanted to give everyone sort of different motives and reasons for why they really wanted this, and a couple of other characters that were just like there to be like, oh, they also want it because it's not going to be just like a few people who were also like clearly like I put in an Apollo character who was literally just a narcissist, like egomaniac who's like, oh, I want to be the center of attention. So I was like, no one's gonna like him.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
Yeah,
you were right.
My mechanics were really just motivations.
Well, you used like a grading system too, because we were competing in a pageant, right?
Right. So there was like you were trying to become the 5-star winner, and there were different like portions of the night that would let you gain stars. Either take them away from someone else or just gain them. So there was a lot of – I kind of invented that mechanic because I really didn't know what else to do. And then there was a lot of like, okay, well, now we have 2 people with 5 stars. So like what are we going to do? And that is where I kind of got into combat, which was just make a scene. Sort of like you're going to have this argument. And Franco did one time got into an actual dance off with Gaia and just embarrassed her in front of all of her. Like,
I think I dance fought Apollo too, or maybe it was him instead, or I forget. I feel like that's the conflict I had with him.
Yeah. Well, it was Apollo. You got into a dance fight with Apollo and embarrassed him in front of his entourage. And he lost his entourage.
It became my entourage.
Yeah,
something
they shifted over to you. You got more than half, and then he was like embarrassed for the rest of the night.
That was funny.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Daniel, about was that when I was reading through the characters, and I cannot remember the actual specific wording, so I'm going to be a little bit vague, and maybe you can help me pick up on stuff. But there's a couple of the characters that are essentially like, if you get through this sort of like emotional moment with being like gruff or like using your kind of like checkered past or whatever, then like it would affect like a NPC that may not be in existence yet of like the person that you used to work for or whatever that might come into it. It's like, it was kind of like the expert in Monster of the Week where their dark history could like come into play the more luck they use. But I remember there was like one sort of like swashbuckler, sort of like the ex-con sort of lesbian archetype that you could build had something like that. Is this ringing any bells, or is this not?
It's really not. Like, it wasn't one of the characters that they chose, and it wasn't a mechanic that came up.
Were there any mechanics though that like, can you talk about how some of them affected the game? Because like so far, for having not been at the game, it sounds like, oh man, Franco dance fought a god, and like, how did that work? And stuff like that. So can you walk through some of the mechanics?
Lot of what we did after you reread the rules, after you try games, like, oh, this was wrong. We did not do this right. But one of the key tenets is you can take 5 like emotional damages. Give me 2 seconds here. So you can be frightened, you can be like wrought with guilt, hopeless, or insecure. And basically, when you lose a role, you take on one of these. And one of the things that we didn't do is like, is that they put a -2 on other moves that you can take from then on. So you can kind of choose which order you take these things in. And that kind of like, how are you going to move past this?
Yeah, because like if you're like a confidence person and you take a blow to your confidence, that might be pretty affecting. So maybe you use a different one instead. Like you take the blow to something else.
Right, yeah. So you definitely want to like, and then that was really interesting because it's like, okay, I don't remember like an example of like, okay, so Franco, you lost this fight. How do you think that affects you in taking the frightened condition? Like, what is that going to mean? Because obviously you're not scared.
Yeah.
But then I think you said something like, you just got like, you were more nervous when you were interacting with someone, something like that. Yeah, we played this game a very long time ago, dear listeners. More than 1 month ago, and my memory starts to fade after like 13 hours.
Yeah. Our little goldfish.
I'm just a little goldfish swimming around in the world. Everything's constantly new and exciting.
Speaking of constantly new and exciting, after this, why don't we just do a quick ad break so that people can learn about the fine folks that are associated with this podcast?
Perfect.
Cool. Let's do that now.
Sure.
Hey, I'm Brando.
And I'm Owen.
And we're the hosts of Banter and Such.
Each week we get together with the most interesting people that we know and talk about the things that we're generally interested in.
Like movies,
TV shows,
movies,
nostalgic childhood franchises,
movies,
urban legends,
and sometimes movies.
So check out Banter and Such anywhere you get podcasts.
Banter, ampersand, such.
Or banter and then the word and then such.
Or just banter and it fills in the rest automatically for you and you just click on it.
Either way, it's called Banter and Such.
Want to get into some BS with us?
Do you like nerdy stuff? Of course you do. Want to see someone make that stuff, but smaller? Sculpting Minis, tabletop terrain, props, puppets, and tutorials, a crafting channel for all things nerdy. Join me over on YouTube at Niche Crafts, where I make stuff about stuff.
Welcome back, everyone, to Tabletop. This week we are reviewing / kind of talking through Thirsty Sword Lesbians, a really popular game right now. It seems so fun. We were talking a little bit about the general kind of feel of the game in the first half. Now let's kind of talk a little bit about how it kind of like, affects all of us. And this is going to be starting out with Shade and Franco. You both identify as, cis men. Did you have any conflicts about playing in the system, or did it feel weird, or like did you have any sort of like how did you, approaching it? I know, Shade, that you have not, so maybe you can talk about maybe some misgivings you might have about it, or not misgivings, but like apprehensions, and then Franco, you can talk about the actual experience of it.
No, I just played it.
It's
like
just a fun game.
Yeah. I definitely didn't have any like. I think I have more misgivings with like anyone taking my opinion about it than I do with actually playing it, because it's a game about inclusion. It's a game that has really been thoughtfully put together. When I honestly fell in love with just reading this rule book. It has a great section on safety and consent, and it's just really, really thoughtful, and it puts emotion and consideration at the forefront. And, I really, really wanted to jump in on this, and I'm sure that we will probably do more of this at some point. I would like to run a game in this setting. But again, I think more than anything, I'm just kind of like, well, but my opinion only matters so much, and so that's where my misgiving would be.
I think we got a talking match here.
I mean, I think the only thing that is like, when you go through the world and you're one way, and then you're just like, oh, did I just fuck up and say the wrong thing? Like, I think that's the only like thing that happens. Is like, oh wait, I'm not a lesbian at all.
Yeah,
it's like, was that okay to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. And then I think it's I don't know. I think that's the only like
thing
that can come across.
I really like this game's focus on, like on lesbians in particular. So it's like a lot of feminine energy, a lot of we're going to go into this without the sort of Conan default for your action adventure
I was
game.
thinking that as well, that it really feels like it takes like sort of the patriarchy induced thing of like hard skills, like fighting and strength and how much constitution you have, and it kind of places the spotlight on more like emotional skills, like can you read somebody's like feelings right now, can you like talk to them in a way that you can like get through to them,
and it doesn't
like,
take out the combat
It's
still
the
there.
context of those.
It's
as
just balanced without all the other things that you're trying to do.
Because like one of the big things, like my friend Michael used to say that his biggest thing when it came to TTRPGs is that everything always seemed to be solved through combat, and that it was like a very sort of like toxic masculine sort of like, okay, we can't barter with this person, kill them or whatever, what I mean?
Yeah.
And then this completely allows you to be like, no, that's not the only thing that's valued at all. There's like this huge swath of other things that you can also be skillful in and do to get through situations.
And to go back into what Shade was saying earlier, like there was this whole section on safety and consent. And I think as a rule book, this does something that a lot of other rule books don't do, is that it sort of like shows you not just what the mechanics of the game are, but how to role play effectively with other people at a table, and gives you, the player, sort of guidelines for how to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, like back to what you were saying, Nick, about like the toxic masculinity inherent in like the origins of Dumb Jumps and Dragonblins.
Dragonblins.
Like a lot of it is based on like just, I mean, nowadays I think a lot of like OSR games are like, it's about finding a solution, not about going into combat, but it's definitely like the origins of it are definitely that. Like it's definitely about violence in some sort of way, in some capacity, and the sort of taking of things. And that's like, and then this game is just like, well, this could be whatever you want, because the mechanics allow for whatever you want.
It's sort of like, because whenever I see you design stuff recently, and also when we designed the Granny Snake Eyes sort of like concept and everything, one of the things you always say is like, in 5e, everything should be killable, because that's sort of like what it is supposed to be, which is going like the origins of everything. But when you design stuff, I always notice that you're like, this like obstacle here is a person, and you can fight it. Here's this stat block, but also this is their motivations, and also what they like and dislike. So maybe they're not completely hostile or whatever, so that they can actually be talked to. And I think that kind of is the more of the sentiment of this, where it's like, I guess you could be, a thirsty sword lesbian that just like goes around with the cutlass and kills everyone, but that doesn't feel really in the spirit of the game.
Right.
Because the conditions that you're inflicting, I don't know. I think like the condition mechanic is very good.
It's very cool.
Yeah. The sort of the wrinkles on like the apocalypse world that this game adds, that I think is, it's definitely, I mean, like really like the playbooks make the game, but also like some of the mechanics that come from the Powered by the Apocalypse tradition of like the strings and the conditions, like those really help with like sort of social situations.
Yeah. One thing I kind of want to ask all of you, because I think this is such a big thing when it comes to any TTRPG, and we can talk about it in this specific case as well. But there's always the thing of like, oh, I'm playing a character that's like the face of the party or whatever. But like I, as a person, don't really feel very capable of being the person who can just, improvise a lot of witty dialogue, or like I don't feel like I'm a funny person, or I don't feel like I'm somebody who can like guide us through whatever. Or I don't feel like I'm high int enough to play whatever. How does that kind of go with this, which really relies on a lot of like EQ skills, where it's like a lot of talking, a lot of being vulnerable, and like some people either are not interested in or are not very good at that in a play setting. So
I gotta say, you don't gotta play every game.
I was gonna say, like, if you're not interested in like an emotional resolution to conflict, this probably isn't for you.
Yeah.
Just like I don't want to play Pathfinder.
But but it's also if you do want, like, if you don't think you're very good at it, then this game does offer you a lot of guidance on how to go about that, and practice with like, here's my character's fake feelings. That will help you maybe like identify and use real feelings in your life.
Yeah. Shay, do you have any because I know you have a lot of experience DMing for like a lot of different people. Have you had an experience of that sort of like dissonance come up at your table?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think that you both hit the nail on the head. You don't have to play it, and it wouldn't hurt you to play it because you could learn something from this. I think that at the end of the day, all TTRPGs are about putting yourself in a role that is probably not who you really are. There are elements you're going to take from that, and this game really does a great job of giving the tools for anyone to come into this and take over the role of a thirsty sword lesbian, no problem. I really do. I just have to sing its praises because, you mentioned a few minutes ago about how it kind of leads you through examples of how to play something out in the book, or maybe it was you, Daniel. I do apologize.
The royal you.
Yes, you guys, you folks. But this is a book that I really do love that whenever I see it, and I think Tin Candles also does this, where it has a script example dialogue. Perfect. I think most TTRPGs could benefit from just kind of having a quick thing like that. But as far as someone who is a little more shy and doesn't want to, be the scoundrel, which is I think the class that you were thinking of previously. I wouldn't describe myself as a scoundrel in real life, but this gives me all the tools. It tells me that, I am going to be someone who lives in the moment. And should be a bit fickle. Yeah. So, I know people who are fickle. I should kind of lean into that a little bit and how to do it. You don't always have to be on when you're playing a game.
I do think that, like you're saying, the way that this book is written is very helpful for people who have never played a really intensive role-playing game before, because it's like such a cool entryway. Because it does have all of those descriptions, and like it's kind of like a quick start guide. It kind of reminds me of when we played the Warhammer game, the Soulbound. With Snyder's Return. Shout out to our friends at Snyder's Return. Great podcast. Go check them out. But that also had all of those quick start characters and everything that even had like your relationships to all the other quick start characters and everything. So and that was like a
very
really
helpful.
Very helpful. So I think that this game really does a great job with that as well. Daniel, one question that you kind of threw out there for us to answer, and I think that this is a really interesting one, which is as a GM, you do have to play a lot of characters, and how does one kind of handle the fluidity of playing folks of a different gender, different sexual orientation? For everyone at the table, does that come up, or do you usually role play in a mostly asexual world? Because I know that in all of the games I've ran, I've only had one romantic relationship, and it was with you, Franco, with Kosuke.
Kosuke.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, my romance was with Franco, too.
Huh.
What does that mean?
I don't really think
Franco?
I don't think I've
Bonnie.
ever. Yeah, I mean, technically, but we're pretty light on that. But
Yeah.
Well, Franco loves romance.
Have I run a lot of romance?
romance is a key thing in your games, I think. In some respect, yeah.
I think that
you were the one hitting on the Duchess.
Yeah, that's true.
In Lakewood, it was very much just like your character was a college-age person going to college, so it was going to show up.
I was like, oh, she's going to be in a love triangle.
Yeah, exactly.
This is going to be great.
And you know what? Speaking of, I forgot. I got to play that thirsty sword lesbian, Sora, in D&D game.
I was thinking about her too, and she's a scoundrel and the worst person that's ever been a player character in any of my games or any of the games at any of our tables. She's a monster.
I guess to get back to the question. You have to be able to put on a lot of caps. And I when I'm writing characters and trying to map out what the next game's going to be, I actively try to make sure that I'm spreading the butter as thin as possible.
Okay.
What?
So I don't like that. Let's go back.
What does that metaphor mean?
I'm trying to cover as much grounds as
gotcha,
possible.
gotcha.
Got it.
But I don't. Yeah, that's not a great metaphor.
smear that
and I'm gonna pay you later to take this out of the
slather
podcast.
that on.
Just slather that.
What are you
on.
talking about? This is going to be a real.
So like,
Your Abraham. He had. I divorced you.
yeah.
I divorced you.
We met, we fell in love, we were
Yeah.
married for a very long
Altaros,
time, and then we ended up divorced at the end of the
Habu.
campaign.
Yep. I don't know what to tell you.
I hope he's happy out there in the world.
I don't know what to tell you.
I find like for me the thing about GMing that kind of stuff is like it does feel kind of like inherently vulnerable because you're like with your friends, and then if you're like having like a romantic scene, it is like sort of telling about like a side of you that your friends don't often see.
Right.
Even if you like role play like a different character, it's sort of like the instincts that you're building off of originally is like sort of that, right? That's how I always like have viewed it, and that's why I've always been sort of like, no, I'll do it, but like I'm shy about it.
That's why I dumped Kosuke. It's like, oh, I wouldn't date Nick. Okay, good to know.
But yeah, like in that case specifically, I just used like because there was another person in this triangle that was sort of vying for your attention.
Claude?
Yeah, Claude. No, not Claude. The jerk. What was his name?
Claude.
Oh, it was
The
Claude.
French guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm thinking of Hans. The
No,
he
we were
was-
just friends.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, we were just
but
friends.
yeah,
I
Claude-
could see them hooking up, but yeah.
But Claude, I was like, who would I hate to be around in a romantic setting? And it was like this like douchey guy, and I was like, who would I find sweet? And that's who Kosuke
Yeah, it was
was.
Kosuke, yeah.
And so that's like sort of like the impetus for that. And I always remember like that it was at first I was like, oh, this is going to be weird, and I was like, this is actually a lot of fun because we got to. It was more like collaborative story building in a fun way of like you're letting me have a little bit of a say in your character in some ways of like who you're interested in.
And then it's always just like, and then they make out.
Yeah. And then the lights fade.
And we just go.
I mean, I think there does need to be a lot of like, hey, do we actually want to talk about these things? How
Safety tools.
Yeah, safety tools. But as far as, playing a variety of orientations, I remember a lot of, it's a very toxic masculine world out there, and I know so many new TTRPG players who are like, yeah, and you get this, I even played a lady, and I'm just like, cool.
Nice, dude.
Good job. If you can't put yourselves, and everyone's journey is different, but if you can't put yourself in someone's shoes that isn't your exact, yes, empathetically, and your that isn't your exact position, man, these games are going to help you eventually, hopefully, learn some of this. The thing that I really always want to make sure of, though, is that no matter what character I'm playing as a DM or as a player, it is full of empathy. It is full of thoughtfulness, and it is steering away from any kind of stereotype that I could possibly imagine as much as I possibly can.
And that's why I'm like really
People are complex.
Yeah, people are complex, and this book does accommodate for that. Like Franco said and Daniel said, there's like a safety tool section. I think that it does a really good job at kind of prepping you to play certain types of characters. And then the mechanics of the game also kind of help that as well. So like when you guys were playing, did you find that like your role playing was helped by the mechanics? Because it seems like that's so front and center that they would,
Yes.
Yeah. So
It definitely helped me guide my way through interactions. Like, okay, what are my movesets? And then how would they be played out?
Yeah.
Whereas without, like in another game, it'd be like, I'm just going to say some random shit and hope it goes well. This was like, oh, I have a structure. I can follow kind of a script.
Yeah.
So I know how to role play a little bit better than just I persuade them to do what I want.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
Sick.
Yeah. In a game that's like all about that, it just seems like it's so well done that they really did the work of making this game very accessible and also very like safe to play, which I think is really, really great. So in this game that's about social complexities, is there anything for the people who are like, I want to fight a big dragon and it's going to be great?
It's in there. It's not the point.
Yeah.
So I would say there are other games if you're looking for combat-heavy role-playing.
Yeah.
But you can fight a dragon.
But you could fight a dragon.
You can, like, fight
But
it-
you should
you
probably
can-
talk to the dragon.
But like you could fight a dragon and be like, I'm gonna do this romantic gesture and slay this dragon, or like get
I'm
some,
gonna slay this dragon.
yeah, or like get something from the dragon, or
Right, yeah. The fighting the
favor.
dragon wouldn't be the point of the adventure. It'd be
yeah.
proving yourself to
It'd be
someone
fighting
else.
the dragon in here. I'm tapping on my heart for the people
Sure.
listening to the podcast. Okay, so as we kind of finish up here, for the folks who have played, would you play it again? Did you find it entertaining, fun, and worth all the
Oh,
awards?
I would definitely run it again.
Yeah,
and
you thought it
play
was a good
again.
time?
Yeah.
How about you, Franco?
Yeah, I'd play.
Yeah, cool. And then what size group works best for this sort of thing?
I think with what's going on display and what you need to do, like I would say like a small group is better for this kind of game.
So like 3
Yeah,
players
3
and 1 GM?
I would say I would say like up to 4 max, just because it's so much role playing and so much like vulnerability. I think that if you got any more than that, you'd run into people kind of like fading to the background and not really wanting to be
Spotlight
like,
problem.
I don't want to do this, but with a small group, it is sort of easier to get that more intimate mindset.
Awesome.
That makes sense.
And then the final thing is, do you think that this is a game only for the queer community?
Stop
or...
baiting us into saying shitty things.
Well, no,
Listen,
you know what?
it's written in the episode outline.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump on that. Yes, the queer plus ally inclusive community. Absolutely it is, because they have a rule, they have a whole section in here says no fascists or bigots allowed. Don't fucking be those people.
Yeah.
End of discussion. Don't be those people. Be an ally, be a queer, be awesome.
Yeah, I think that this is a game. Who wrote, would it break the game to hack it for twinks?
That was Daniel.
Was that Daniel? Daniel, do you have an
wrote
answer for
this.
that?
Danny, do you have an answer for
Look,
that?
this was just some prompts. You don't have to do a call out right here. But yeah, if you're playing with a
thought
more
you skipped it on
masculine
purpose.
group, yeah, you can be Thirsty Sword Twinks, I guess, too.
I love that.
Jesus Christ.
I can't believe that I didn't see that until the very end. Yeah, I think that this game is great for everybody. And like Shade said, it is written for, people who are in the
Awesome.
community or who are allies and awesome, like you said. So yeah, don't be a fascist, don't be a bigot, and you'll have a good time with this game, I think. Daniel, do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
had a
either
great
of those
time.
things. I had a good time too.
Cool. All right. Well, any final thoughts going into the end of this?
I'll reiterate it. Don't be a fascist or a bigot. Just love people, dude.
And I'll reiterate, this game could work with a bunch of twinks too.
Is that a reiteration?
And I'm going to reiterate, I'm done. I quit. I'm leaving.
I'm sorry.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next week for another episode of Tabletopped. Tabletopped is part of the Helios Network, a
the
podcast
moment.
network for... What did you just say?
Until they drop this.
Until they drop us. Yeah, well, you know what? They make podcasts for regular people, by regular people. I don't know how to recover from this guy. Go listen to their stuff. It's really great. And everyone, we'll see you next week for another episode of Tabletopped.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, haters.
Sorry.